Hello, Goshen Theater Drama Club students, Goshen Theater fans, and friends and family. Welcome to episode 2 of Goshen Theater Drama Club Table Talks. We're also excited to be here today. Hello, everybody. Say hello.
Hello, friends.
Hi.
With us today, we've got Miss Katie, as always, and Miss Molly, as always. And we have a special guest today from South Bend Civic Theater, our expert witness, Mr. Aaron Nichols.
Yay!
All right, we're going to just quickly introduce ourselves again, just in case this is your first time tuning in to Table Talks. First, we have Miss Molly, our Goshen Theater intern this semester. Take it away, Miss Molly.
Hello, I'm Miss Molly. I've recently graduated with my BFA in musical theater performance from Western Michigan University. Woo, go Broncos. I'm an intern at the Goshen Theater, and I'm also working with the Drama Club. I do some choreography work as well, so I'm super excited to be here. Yay!
And Miss Katie.
Hello, friends. I'm an actress based out of Chicago. I worked with Miss Amber at the Round Barn Theater. Those in the Goshen area probably saw me there, if at all. And then I've been doing their camps at Round Barn Theater for about 5 years now. And now I'm on with Goshen Theater's Drama Club for the summer. So
What a
yay.
coincidence. What
I
a
know.
coincidence.
Crazy. Crazy.
And Aaron.
Hello there, everybody. I'm the executive director at South Bend Civic Theater. I've had that job for about 3 years. Before that, I worked at Notre Dame in their Shakespeare program. I am an actor first, director second, administrator third, and I just love creating opportunity for our artists. And honestly, with the Civic, and you'll hear more about this as I get up and down off my soapbox, but that theater really is a tool for community, for building community, for creating community, and that's where I think Civic Theater has a place, especially in times like this.
Absolutely. I love that. So in the last episode, we chatted a little bit about school program auditions, like getting into your college and doing scholarships. We also chatted about your school play auditions and the things that you should prepare when you are like nervous and trying to get that part in the big school play. So today we are going to focus on civic theater auditions, and we're really excited because this is something that it's an exciting opportunity for you guys if you are one of our students, or if you are a parent of one of our students, or just a member of the community. This is a really cool way for you to get involved. It's low pressure, and also it's got, there's a lot of opportunity for you to create community with other folks, and it's fun and exciting. But this is a great way for students to expand what they might be doing in school, and also to have another fun and creative opportunity. So Aaron, talk to us a little bit about like the purpose of civic theater.
Well, I think it's multifaceted. I think what you're talking about is definitely important. You know, when I was a young theater artist, it was all about just working, just doing more and more and more, and learning from multiple directors. And I think if you're an aspiring theater artist, especially a young theater artist, often when you're working at a high school, you're only working for one director over and over and over and over and over again. And often that doesn't give you that versatility, working with multiple processes that will help you in the professional world. Because, almost every show you'll do then is going to be for a different series of production teams. So, working in as many places as you can, doing as many things as you can, Civic Theater offers you that opportunity without having to go to a large metropolitan area. There's a lot of good civic theaters within this, tri-county area. So I think that's, if you have the time, if you have the resources, and that's something I think we should always talk about too, is, it's a volunteer gig. So there is some disparity in the opportunity for that. We do our best to try to help actors, if they're coming from far away. I usually try to at least offer a little mileage or something like that to mitigate some of those costs. But there is some inequity that exists in being available to do this opportunity. But I would, if you can find a way to do it, I encourage you to, because just for that, building up your skill set, building up your toolbox, even if it's learning what not to do or how to deal with really bad processes or really bad directors, you'll do that too in the professional world. But I think on the other side, for me, it's all about community. I find that creating network and again, this is selfish for your own career, creating relationships with people. You'll never know who is going to find that next opportunity for you, who's going to basically have a great time, working with you, and tell that person who's going to give you your next opportunity, they're who you need to work with. Even if their skills don't necessarily show it in an audition, that was a fun process. They were cool to work with. So much of professional theater is they're easy to work with.
Yeah.
Nailed it.
Did it. And if you can hone those skills of how to work with people, that's important. And then I think it's good to meet different kinds of people. And I think every process you do in civic theater often is with some strangers. And that's good too, because it teaches you how to work with new sets of people. Too often high school programs become kind of cliquey, and even civic theaters become cliquey. We try really hard not to be that way at South. Like, what? We try really hard not to do that at the Civic, and I think there's some prima donnas who are annoyed by that because they don't have such kind of unquestioned authority, in the audition room. We're saying, the best person gets the part, and that is, I think the word is out because we're getting more and more new faces coming in, process to process. And one of the things at the Civic, at least, we talk about being a light in the darkness, about being a place to build empathy and compassion. And I think just as a human being, civic theater is a great way to do that, because in this world, those skills of empathy and compassion are kind of less than developed in a lot of people. So, I think civic theater is a great way to do that. And we have a lot of people who could care less about being a professional theater artist. They just really like what they get out of it. And I would probably consider myself one of those people. I dabbled in professional theater, but I really feel my place is in civic theater because of the difference we can make in our community.
I love that. So Molly, what's a good example of something that you would say is a good way to deal with nervousness when going into a civic theater audition?
Ooh, that's a good one. For me, one thing that was kind of fun is every once in a while growing up, I had a lot of friends that also wanted to audition for civic theater. And sometimes there can be weird competition when you're auditioning with people that but I think it's really important to find a way to make that sort of fun. So my friends and I would go to the audition together, and then after the audition we would have plans to go get lunch and just sort of make a day out of it. So that was sort of one way that I felt like it wasn't just me under all of this pressure. We were all in this together. Just knowing that you can kind of let loose and have fun. Even my mom and I did an audition together, right after I graduated from high school. We ended up both doing the show together. So just things like that are really cool and really community focused. But I really like listening to music before I audition, just to either pump myself up or calm myself down. I've heard of some people who like to listen to stand-up comedy before the audition, which I think is really interesting because it takes all the pressure off. It gets your mind kind of in a fun place where you're just walking into the room to show them who you are. And yeah,
I love that.
Connecting with people. Those are just little things, but
I love that. So Katie, we talked briefly before we started recording about how most of civic theater auditions, and the South Bend Civic in particular, are cold auditions. What do you think is a good way as an actor? What's the best way to prepare for going into read cold?
Yeah, so tools to help you with cold reading is to literally just pick up any random book on your shelf, take a look at it, take time, and then practice reading it, because you've got to have those skills on the spot to know how to really convey what's being said. So that's just one exercise you can do. Specifically for your audition, you should always try to find the play and read it, right? We talked about this last time. Know what the play is about, know what your character that you're working for or reading for is about, and what they do in the show, and what their importance is to the plot line, and what's happening in that scene that you're going to be reading. Sometimes you get it beforehand. Aaron, I don't know if you guys make your sides available before the day of auditions. Okay, so Civic specifically, they put it on their website, I assume?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's on the website. Go start rehearsing. Have your parents or your neighbor, your best friend, your cousin. I know right now you're not allowed to be with all those people in person, but you can definitely FaceTime them and practice reading. And it's good to read with different people because different people will be in the room with you reading with you.
Yeah.
So practice it numerous times with different people. And just remember that the directors are rooting for you every step of the way. They have a problem and you could be the solution to their problem. So make sure that you are literally just doing your best and having fun in the room and be good to work with.
One cool resource from South Bend Civic about cold reading, Aaron just let me know this. They have a class that they just posted on boning up your cold reading skills. We're going to post that link in the description of this video, both on the YouTube and on the Facebook, so that you guys can check that out. I took a little glance at it, and it is awesome. It's really, really good. And I've been in the business for 1,000,000 years. My first show was with a Tyrannosaurus Rex. So so Aaron, at the Civic, and in your experience with other civic organizations, what are you guys looking for from somebody when they walk in and they're auditioning for you?
Sure, and I'll just speak from my my time as a director, you know, managing an audition for a show I'm directing. I think the first is confidence without arrogance. And that's a balance. There's a balance there. You know, there's some people that just, you know, take over the room, and that kind of confidence is off-putting because, you know, that's probably going to be how they act during process as well. But then there's just confidence that's kind of quiet, prepared, kind, sweet. I mean, sweet is the wrong word, but just fun, right? You know, that idea that they'll be a good. Working with them for 8 weeks will be a wonderful experience, and you can usually tell that pretty quickly. And just so you know, folks, directors are very good at making these determinations pretty quickly. So I would say that don't be worried if you as an auditioner don't get a lot of time with a director. A lot of the times they're just trying to get through the day. And so if they see something in 30 seconds, a minute, 90 seconds, whatever that is, that's usually enough to cast somebody on, at least for my sake. So don't worry if you're not getting a callback even, because a lot of the times a callback is just to fill in roles that they're not sure about. So I would say that. Other things that I like to see, playfulness. I mean, the willingness to kind of get out of a comfort zone. A lot of the times directors will just push you past a first reading and ask you to do things that you haven't prepared for. And that's where like improv comedy and just being ready to say yes and comes in, right? Because you're saying, I am willing to do what they are asking me to do. And often it's just they want to see something different. And it's not always that different is what they're looking for. They just want to see adaptability and, you know, plasticity in your acting. So that's another thing I would say. Like when I think Amber was saying, you know, read the script, but that's important. I mean, a lot of times there's people who come in and you say, okay, you're going to be reading for blank. You don't want to have to give them a summary of that character's motivations. You know, often take the hour. Even read the cliff notes on Wikipedia. I mean, it doesn't take that long, right? And then you'll at least know, you know, what the character's about, you know, what their stakes are, you know, all that kind of stuff. And I would say just take, even if it's just 5 minutes on Wikipedia, that will make a difference. And that will probably put you above half of the people in that room who are just, you know, just doing it for fun. Right? Take a little more time and you'll have more fun in the long run if you do a little work beforehand.
Well, so much of theater is sitting alone in your room. Most of it isn't standing in front of people waving your arms and yelling, right? Most of it is what the preparation that you do by yourself is. So if you show that you have the ability to do that preparation before your audition, I think that's telling them that you have the majority of the skills needed to actually pull it off.
And I would say most of the stuff is not monologue. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
most of the stuff you're working with a scene partner. and I would say generosity in that process is really important. Give back to your scene partner. Listen to them, and don't just wait for the next time that you're supposed to be speaking. I think a lot of times in auditions, I look at two people. One person is speaking, the other person is getting ready. They're looking at the next line and not giving it all to the other person, which is really selfish. And that kind of selfishness in an audition often leads to selfishness in process and in production. And again, directors can spot that.
Yeah, give them your attention. I love that. That's really smart. So do you guys, and I know that when we would post audition notices at Round Barn Theater or wherever, we would let people know kind of what the audition was going to look like. I know that not everybody does that. What do you think that folks should bring to an audition wardrobe wise? Like, what should they have ready to go?
Never wear a costume from the show. I mean, come on. Yeah, everybody's laughing because you've all seen it. I've been involved in Wizard of Oz where I've had 10 Dorothys in gingham dresses, and I'm like, come on, just wear something comfortable. But I would say comfort is key, but don't take casual to a ridiculous level. You know, professional, comfortable working clothes. And by working, I mean you can do the requirements of the audition in them. So for a play, you know, Chekhov, you're going to wear probably something different than for, you know, Rodgers and Hammerstein, right? I mean, so there's just know what you're going to have to do. Often, I mean, always we're saying, okay, there will be a dance audition, there will be a singing audition, there will be an acting audition. You know, if there's not a dancing audition, that kind of clears out some of the attire stuff you need to worry about. But I would say never wear sandals, never wear anything with an open toe. Just because the director may ask you to do something weird. He or she may ask you to do floor work where you're going to have to get down. So I would say, you know, usually something that covers the knee, something that covers the elbow, just in case you do have to do something a little more physical than you might expect. Usually not a ton of layers that just get in the way. I don't like scarves and things that just create character already. You know, there's a lot of basic neutral clothes, for me at least, to let your character, your personality shine and not rely on, you know, bright colors and silly patterns to say, I'm fun and goofy. You know, just show me that in the audition. I don't need you to tell me that with your clothes.
That's awesome. So Molly, when you are coming into a cold read or you're coming into something like a Civic Theater audition at a place that you've never been before, what are some of the things that you bring with you to like either help you feel like prepared or to get your voice ready? Like, what are some of the things that you have in your backpack with you?
Sure. I always have a water bottle. I feel like that's such a simple thing to say, but I just feel like if you're drinking water, then you're not gonna like faint because you're dehydrated, and just like that kind of cuts out some of the weird stuff that could go wrong. This is another like weird thing that I usually have with me, but I always bring a straw. It can be a reusable straw too, like save the planet. But it really helps warm up your voice if you're singing through a straw. It helps you connect to your breath. It gives you forward placement, and it's also really, really quiet, because like one of my biggest pet peeves is when you go to an audition and there's like the warm-up room that's like outside of the audition room, and there's girls or boys like belting their faces off in there when you're like trying to kind of quietly prepare. But it is like really important to warm up your voice. So if you have a straw or something that's like humming, lip trills, those are good warm-ups that I usually like to have with me. I usually bring a book because I don't really like talking to a ton of people when I'm auditioning, but I also like to have something to do so I'm not just sitting there on my phone. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like a straw for me is like the one weird thing that I will never be without at an audition.
That's awesome. I've never heard that before. I love it. So Miss Katie, when you're seeing someone in sort of a cold reading audition situation, like as a director, and you want to see sort of what kind of tools that person can bring to the table, how they can interpret your notes, what kind of things might you ask an actor to do in a cold reading just to sort of test them out, see what they might be able to do?
Well, I personally usually deal with children actors. So in those cases, I would give them more of a leading suggestion as to how to take the character, really drive home something about that character that I think is the most important quality to see out of that specific character. or I might take it in a complete different direction. Just like Aaron has said, like, we want to see that you're willing to play with us. Because, I mean, think of the stage as your playground in some respects, right? We're in this imaginary world together and we're building it together. And you may bring something to the stage that I never even thought about for that character. And I might think that's super interesting. So I may throw out, okay, well, how about we do it like you're running out of time, or how about we do it like you're super old. But once again, I work mainly with children actors, right? They're not going to ask an adult to do those kind of things. They're going to give you more structured plan, right? They're going to ask you more specific character kind of situations. But really, it's really seeing if you're willing to do whatever I asked you to do and see how far you'll go in a safe way. Right. I want you to always be safe. That's also key. Don't do anything that's going to be dangerous and make me go, oh, are they going to hurt themselves if they do that? Sometimes I would ask my kids in auditions if they had any special gymnastic skills, right? Because sometimes those are fun things to put into our shows. In that case, I always make sure that you have the right footwear. Once again, no open-toed shoes, no sandals. And I'm going to be paying attention to whether or not I think that's safe for you to try, because you'd be surprised how many children are just willing to take a flip, even if they've never had training. So it's always like, do you have any of these skills? And if you tell me yes, I ask you what they are, and then I assess whether or not I need to see them. So just be willing to try anything and everything, but in a safe way.
I was at the callback in high school, and the director said to do something that would really impress her in the song. And so one of the boys did a backflip, but he had never done a backflip, nor did it fit in the song for him to do a backflip, and it did not go well. So that literally has happened. I've seen it with my eyes.
You can ruin an audition if I think that you might hurt yourself. I will be too worried about your well-being to pay attention to any trick you just did. So always make sure you're doing it safely so I don't worry about you.
You know, when you get that crazed look in their eye and I'm going to do it. I would say that made me think of the word interesting. Be interesting. You know, be something more than you're seeing from the rest of the people. And again, don't be crazed, but be interesting. You know, everybody has their own things that they can bring to the table. Bring your own freak flag and fly it. And usually that will pay off. I've noticed that. I've taken chances on people just because I saw something real. I saw that spark of something special in an audition, and I didn't know them from anybody, and took a chance, and usually it pays off.
So we talked last time a little bit in episode 1 about having a list of conflicts with you and bringing like a headshot and a resume as like stuff that's like paperwork that you can prepare ahead of time. I've done a couple Civic Theater auditions where I took like a casual resume and a headshot just to make sure that it was easier than writing it all down. But I think that that conflict list is super important, because in casting for me, conflicts were almost more important than nearly anything else.
Yes. And I think that's some of that is on the theater too, to make sure that they're giving you an accurate range and an expectation of dates. You know, because a lot of people are like, you know, list all your conflicts for this whole period. But sometimes it's helpful to say, and we try to do this with directors in early production meetings, when do you want to be rehearsing? You know, and then so you can kind of give and take there. So you're not just saying, we're going to rehearse 7 days a week for the next 8 weeks. No, we're saying, traditionally, we like to do Sunday through Thursday from 7 to 10. Please list all your conflicts in case those have to change because of actor issues or whatever, right? But at least then there's a give and take a little bit to say, this isn't all on the actor. You know, the process has been thinking about this as well.
Yeah, there have been times when I've auditioned for shows, and I don't know if you guys have this common experience where I've had a lot of conflicts and I haven't gotten cast because I had those conflicts. And when I looked back at it later, I thought I had a lot going on during that period of time. The process of doing that show probably would have been too much. So taking an honest assessment of your schedule is probably a good precursor to even deciding to audition.
And I would say don't be surprised if you come at a director with a bunch of additional conflicts. if they don't have to change their mind.
Yeah.
I've had to get, recast because somebody's like, oh, I'm going to take 2 weeks and go to the Bahamas with my parents or something like that. That literally has happened. And I was like, well, okay, enjoy, but you're not going to be in this show. And usually I'd probably do it a little more tactfully than that, but
Bye-bye.
bye. Right. So do be honest about it. Take a little time, look at your calendar. And I much rather appreciate someone who I see a little calendar book or them looking at their phone or really doing it, just been like, nothing, no conflicts. That is like one of the most eyebrow raising things that I will see on an audition form. If you say no conflicts, I'm like, and I will go extra hard at that person to make sure that that's true. But if I see a bunch of conflicts, okay, good, you've thought about it. And I'd rather see a bunch of conflicts, even like week-long periods. Don't think that by putting accurate conflicts, you're not going to be considered. It's almost the opposite.
Oh, that's smart.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. I think also in the vein of honesty, don't put things down that you're either not willing to do or that you can't do. Like, I know this is something that happens in civic theater more often than it does in professional theater or even in educational theater. There will be a line on the audition sheet that says, are you willing to accept any role? Don't say yes unless you mean it. And if you have like special skills, don't say I can do a cartwheel and roller skates if it only happened once and by accident. Like, don't.
While you're falling.
Yeah. So I think being honest in an audition situation in general is really important, but it's super important in this case because it's often people that you don't know. It's like strangers, and they're trusting you that those conflicts and your openness and all of that is what you say it is. So don't just say something to get cast.
Yeah, and if it's I won't accept any role, if you will accept 3 or 4 roles, that's fine too. And that again makes the director realize that you have thought about it and you kind of know your type in a way. And theater
Or
is
not.
or you have no idea what your type is. I've had people say, I want this character, and I'm like, there's no way I would ever cast you in that role. And theater is one of the last places where you can just be typed. And we try to have intentional casting where, often we make bold choices as commentary. I mean, sometimes that happens with directors. I cast an African-American Stella in My Streetcar Named Desire just because after 5 minutes you were like, it doesn't matter to me anymore. But, there are some things that will still put you in either size or I don't know, personality, height, all these other things. I mean, I'm pretty wildly against sizeism, and I think in civic theater you kind of have to be. But there are a lot of theaters, and you're still allowed to do this. There's no equal opportunity kind of protections for someone to say, you're too tall or you're too, I don't know, whatever. So be okay with that because it's the industry. That's what the world is. Know your type. Push boundaries. Show what you got, and maybe they'll see you in a character that maybe you didn't even see yourself. But I think be okay with knowing your type and develop that type so you're the best version of your type that's possible. That's what I would say.
Right, because we're dealing with literature. We're not dealing with reality. So someone wrote this as a fictional version of a situation, and they wrote literary archetypes. Like, that's what we're dealing with. We're pretending to be something that doesn't exist. Like pure literary archetypes. So yeah, I think knowing your type is super important. I know that like type also changes over a period of time. And Molly and I were actually having this discussion in the office, I think on the very last day that we were allowed to be in the office.
That's sad, but also great.
But we were talking about how between your teenage years and your adult years, there's a period of time in there where your type is changing. And then between childhood and your teenage years, there's a period of time where your type changes. And I'm dealing with something right now. I'm 41. So I am going through a type transition now. I'm tall, so I've been playing mom since I was 15. So it's not that abrupt. But as you get older, your type changes. As your body changes, like different things can happen. People can gain weight, lose weight. You can get stronger, have more muscle tone, have less. Like there's all kinds of stuff that's going to affect your type and affect the way that you're going to be cast. And there's sort of a self-awareness that you have to have that's difficult sometimes,
Right.
to say the least. But what would you say, like if we were talking about general archetypes or types within theater, what are some, like group discussion, what are some types for the kids so that they know what they're aiming at? Because maybe the kids aren't necessarily familiar with what type is.
I think there's the Aunjanue. I mean, that's kind of the very most basic, the leading lady, the leading man. And those have a look traditionally. Often they have to be a triple threat. So, if you are that type, if you can't sing or can't dance, that will be a detriment to play that type. There's the comedic secondary lead, almost always that exists. I mean, you think of the Sancho, you think of,
Ado Annie.
Yeah, Ado Annie, you think of what in The Music Man, his little friend, those, and by me saying that, I think I just owned one of the parts of that type. I mean, part of the secondary lead is they're shorter than the lead. And often they're, maybe less fit than the lead. And that's an advantage to that character.
Like Gaston and LeFou.
Yeah, perfect. That's a great, Disney example. And you look in almost every, to your point, Amber, I mean, there's a lot of times where that is an archetypal necessity, to guide you don't have enough time for all the exposition that it takes to define these characters. Often we're going right into it, right? So you need to guide the audience through the type. A lot like Commedia. I mean, if you look at some of the French stuff, I mean, it is like formalized in a very, look up some of that stuff, and it's fascinating, in fact, to look at that. But I would say those are some of the main ones. I would say, the mother figure or the authority figure. Usually there's and this is one of the, I think some of the most fun you can have in theater is playing the villain. But there are certain, angularity, certain, arched eyebrow, whatever it is, there are certain looks. Well done. there are certain looks that help you to kind of nail those archetypes. But I mean, those are a few of them. I'm sure Amber and the rest, we can all kind of define more of them, Molly and Katie. But that's the few that come to mind for me.
There's some newer archetypes too that I really enjoy. Like I just mentioned Gaston. I think there's the villainous handsome man.
Yeah.
Yes, I think that's very true.
What's another one? I think Hairspray kind of changed the game a little bit, the Ingenue game. So there is a genre of theater now where the ingenue is an atypical ingenue, whatever that means. So it can be body size, it can be height, it can be a bunch of different things, but there are shows that are written where someone has to have those skills and that spirit and a specific body type that's not that typical ingenue body type. And I love that that's kind of the direction things are moving. Yeah. What else? What do you guys think, Katie, Molly?
Oh man, there were like so many that you said. I mean, there's definitely, if you're the type of person where like dance is a little bit maybe like where you shine the most, being in all of the ensemble numbers, kind of being a dance captain sort of person. I don't know if dance captains are used quite as much in Civic Theatre. I haven't.
Oh, they are. Yeah. That depends on the show. Yeah.
So yeah, that's always a really kind of interesting track to take too, because then you sort of have a leadership position, with a lot of the ensemble members helping them learn the dancing, get all of the spacing correct. So there's a lot intellectually that you're able to do within that process as well, that you might not be a specific character, but there's a lot of work behind the scenes and that sort of a thing.
What do you think, Katie?
Coming at it from the children's theater end of everything, it's important for a director to see your personality. Miss Amber touched on this last week, where you may have a child who their personality is leadership, right? And I know that this ensemble role requires someone who can help their group, right? And they've got to be that leader for their group. They've got to be in the front for the dance numbers because they are good dancers, whatever it is. You may not be the Aunjanue lead, but you are the lead of your group. And that's because you had the personality and the tools and the experience that I need in that role. So just remembering that we're also looking at just your personality, not necessarily where you fit character-wise, but also like where you fit in the over arc of the team that we've created, right? Remember, this is a teamwork effort. We're going to put a show together as a team. So thinking of where you fit personality-wise is always very important.
I love that. And that kind of segues me into our final topic of the table talk today. We also at Round Barn Theater would often use our actors' additional skills. Sometimes we had people who were working for us that were musicians or who had sewing skills or other things like that. Aaron, when you guys at the Civic, when you are like working with like hair, makeup, costumes, and things like that, are there opportunities for people from the public and things like that for you guys?
Basically is the public. I mean, we have a staff, but those we don't have a large technical staff and we don't have a large design staff. So a lot of those roles and responsibilities are being filled by volunteers. And often, you know, if an actor has XYZ skills, and I'll tell you, I mean, this is totally true in professional theater too. You know, if you have box office experience, or if you have carpentry experience, or if you have whatever experience, they're going to be much more likely to hire you because they're going to, you know, work you to death in those first few years, you know, with all of those skills, and that will just get you more work. And I would say, you know, at the Civic Theater, the stuff we need the most, carpentry, lighting design, you know, those are probably the two biggest ones. Lighting design being the one that there's just not a lot of people who stay around who have really trained in that particular skill set. We try to do training with volunteers, and I think that's, again, it's a give and take. The theater needs to offer opportunity to learn these skills, because if you're not in a professional program, or if you're not in some, you know, undergrad program to learn it, where are you going to learn how to do, you know, theatrical lighting design? So, you know, we work with a wonderful group called EventSys. They're a technical, you know, theater and event group. And so they have experts, and we bring them in and we hire them to teach, you know, lighting design, to teach stagecraft, to, you know, teach some of this stuff. And we use some of our staff members to do that too. So again, the theater often will give opportunity to learn some of this stuff. And I would say, as an actor, as a, you know, whatever you are, if you want to learn something, don't be afraid to ask the theater and say, hey, I want to learn X. Often that theater is like, oh my gosh, we totally need that. Let's train you up so you can be one of the people who fills that void in some ways. So again, don't be afraid to ask for what you want to learn. Education is a big part of what South Bend Civic Theater does, and not just, you know, with you know, a cohort of, you know, year-round acting students. You know, we really want to make lifelong learning a thing, because it's a win-win. I mean, I'll just be honest. You know, the more people who know how to do lighting design, the easier it is to do my job, which is to find lighting designers for a dozen shows a year. So I think that's important. It's on you, but the theater should also be potentially providing you the opportunity to learn the things that you just don't know and don't have the opportunity to learn.
Yeah, and if you're passionate about theater arts in general, I think that kind of parlays you into other ways to use your skills, because everybody has secondary skills. There's very few people that are just acting zombies. You know, everybody's got other interests. So for me, I was always passionate about just being in the building and cultivating my skills in whatever way that I could, to just be around. So that drove me a lot of times to do that stuff. But that is so cool that you guys offer like training within the theater to help do some of those things. I don't know a lot of places that do offer stuff like that. So that's incredible.
We also offer the stage management training as well. And if they go through that, it's like a 4-day, usually 4 Saturdays kind of a program where you learn how to do your book and all the stuff. And if you go through that, then you're eligible to be a paid, stipended stage manager for our productions. So that's been an advantage too. So if then people can get a small stipend to do the hard work that stage management is. And I would say any actor, and I'm just going to look right into the screen, any actor needs to stage manage a show at some point. Yes. Because that is the hardest job in theater. It is the most important role in a show above the director. It is essential work, and if you do that work, you will understand all the things that annoy directors and stage managers about you.
I think that's so brilliant, and I just want to say that, like, any student out there should definitely take advantage of all of those opportunities now, because once you start getting into professional theater as well, if that's like a route that you want to take. I've worked at a professional summer stock theater for the last two summers, and we put up 8 shows in a summer. So that gives us about a 1.5 week window to get every show up and running, up on its feet, performing every night. But on top of that, since I was an apprentice when I worked there, not, like a full equity actor, I coordinated their entire youth outreach program, which was really, really hard work. And when I wasn't at rehearsal, I was in the office. I worked in the box office. We all helped build the sets, although there were some people that were like specifically doing that. There also was like a restaurant bar attached, and I served drinks in the restaurant every single night. So I also played keyboard in their pits. I played bassoon in their cabaret shows. So, and I really think that those reasons, apart from, my work as an actor there, that's like why I went back and I went on to do more. And, the more work I did, not just on stage, but in other areas, in whatever way I could help, the more kind of a part of that theater family I became. And now it's a really special place to me. And I think if I would have just been focusing on my acting and think, this is like what I'm here for, not going to work hard at the other stuff, I don't think I would have gotten very much out of it. So
yeah, it's a lifestyle. It really is. I mean, they say that about, if you work in food service, if you're like in a kitchen, I mean, that's a lifestyle. That's it. The hours are longer, the work is harder, but if you want to do this work, you need to realize that that's the kind of commitment that you are signing up for. And anything less, you're going to seem like you don't appreciate the opportunity, or that you're not a team player, or whatever. It's hard slogging work, especially in that first 10 years.
Oh yeah. Katie and I remember having the impulse to just like sleep when we weren't in the building, when we were working like 72-hour weeks.
Oh, I slept in the building numerous times. Camp week, just slept in between camp and shows. Like, that's where it was at. Backstage bed, that was mine.
Yeah. I think there is actually a picture of me, not in my Wicked Witch costume, but in full Wicked Witch makeup with a purple hoodie, sleeping on the yellow brick road.
Garth used to find me sleeping on the stage and just gently wake me up when all the actors would start arriving. I'd be like, oh, it's time to do a show. He'd be like, yeah, you got to go get dressed. I'm like, all right.
Here we go.
I think there needs to be a show called 2 a Day, where it's the 2 hours between the two performances. That's the show.
It's the reset.
Right.
Yes.
Yes, please.
Final curtain to opening curtain.
Nobody steal that idea, because it's in development now. Oh my goodness. Well, I want to thank you, Aaron, for joining us for Table Talk today. This has been a ton of fun, and such great information. If folks want to audition for a show at South Bend Civic, how do they do it?
sbct.org. Our Facebook is huge too. We're on Instagram, so there's a lot of good stuff. Grace Lazars is our volunteer coordinator. She's amazing, super fun. We're doing stuff this summer, even with all of this going on. We have a 24-hour theater fest that's going to be on May 1st and 2nd. So you can reach out to me. I'm just Aaron at sbct.org. And then we're getting it back into it. We do 12 shows a year. So if you're interested, there is opportunity. So thank you.
That's awesome. Thank you guys for joining us for the second episode. Next week, we're going to expand on our audition series, and we are going to be talking about the professional world and some of the stuff that you guys will need to parlay your interests into a career in the theater and how to get those auditions done in the professional world. Very exciting stuff. Thank you guys for joining us today. And thank you for being a part of Goshen Theater Drama Club. Thank you, Aaron. Thanks, Katie. Thanks, Molly. And we'll see you guys next week. Bye.
Bye, guys.